Welcome to Oz, your Dutch uncle, where we talk about truth, life, love, family, healing, and everything in between. No sugarcoating, no pretenses, just honest conversation from somebody who has lived long enough to tell the truth and still laugh about it. What's happening? I'm Hoomes, also known as Oz, your Dutch uncle. If this is your first time stopping by, I appreciate you. And if you've been hanging out with me these last couple of weeks, well, you know you're always welcome back, and I truly appreciate you spending a little time with me. Now, if you haven't listened to episodes 1 and 2, I encourage you to go back and check those out. Episode 1 will help you understand what sibling rivalry is really about. Episode 2 explores why siblings compete and why jealousy is often only a part of the story. Today, we're going to talk about something that influences both of those conversations, parents. Now, before anyone gets nervous, let me do this disclaimer or this footnote. I am not here to blame. I am not here to point fingers. So please do not get nervous. Uh, that isn't where we're going today. We know that most parents love their children. Most parents are doing the best they know how to do. And the cut and conversation is not about blame. It's not about pointing fingers. It has to do about understanding. Because when we understand something, we have a better opportunity to make it better. Again, I appreciate you being here. Welcome to my world. One thing I've learned over the years is this: parents don't just raise children, they shape the emotional climate these children grow up in. And think about that for a moment. When we remember childhood, we usually remember more than the birthdays and Christmas presents and vacations or the family pictures. We remember how home felt. Did it feel peaceful? Was it safe? Did we laugh together? And could somebody make a mistake without feeling embarrassed? And did people talk through their problems? Or did everybody just stop talking to one another? Those are the kinds of things children should remember. Now, here's something else I've learned. Parents usually remember what they had intended, what their intentions were. Children remember what they experienced. And those two things sometimes aren't always the same. And a mother may honestly say, I loved every one of my children the same. And she may be telling the absolute truth. One child may still say, I never felt seen. Another may say, I always felt compared. And yet I have another one thinking that my brother is favorite. And technically, who's lying? Well, maybe nobody. They're simply remembering the same family through different eyes. And that's why this conversation is extremely important and why it matters. Because children don't experience life exactly the same way. Even if they are under the same roof with the same parents, eating at the same table, each child has their own personality, their own needs, their fears, their own memories. And parents don't always realize how those different experiences shape the relationship siblings have with one another. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Not perfect parents, not even bad parents, just real families trying to figure life out together. I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and I call it the dark ages, and some people may call it ancient history. But let me tell you something, life was different back then. The neighborhood helped raise the children, and if you got in trouble 3 blocks away, oh, please, you best leave the family already knew before you got home. And don't ask me how. And to this day, I still think grown folks had their own secret communication system and they knew everything. And back then, you didn't just respect your parents, you respected grown folks. You respected the people in your neighborhood. Now, I remember walking we were expected to walk a certain way to school and a certain way back home, and there was this old lady, this spinster who never married, and, she was always Miss Gray. Ooh, you gotta love Miss Gray. She was always on the porch, and we always had to say, "Good morning, Miss Gray," when we went to school, and that old heifer would be on the porch when we were returning from school, and we had to say, "Good afternoon, Miss Gray." Well, I I was a mischievous child. I didn't believe in getting into trouble, and I wasn't into pain because back then, anyway. So I decided one day that I didn't want to speak to Miss Gray coming back or returning from school. So I walked the street over. Well, unfortunately for me, Miss Gray called my grandmother and said that, well, I didn't see Lewis coming home from school. Well, when I reached the house, my grandmother was on the porch. That's not a good sign. When you see Everett on the porch, that's not a good sign. Now, if she was in the swing, well, that's a good sign. But if Everett was standing next to the steps, that wasn't a good sign. So I walk up the sidewalk, and she said, "Which way did you walk home from school?" Now, see, I wasn't into lying because I couldn't keep up with what I had said. So I always told the truth. And I said, "I walked the street over." And she asked, "Why did you walk the street over?" And I said, "Because I didn't want to talk to Miss Gray." Oh boy, that was a huge mistake, huge mistake. And so my grandmother said, pointing her finger. Now you have to understand when back then when the old folks pointed their fingers, that was like the uh, 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 that was like a sign from God. And so she said, "Well, you know what you had to do." So, which I knew that I had to return to Miss Gray. I had to walk 4 houses down. I had to apologize. Well, with me being mischievous as I was, I said, "My grandmother told me I had to come back here and apologize to you, so I'm apologizing." Well, needless to say, my grandmother was on the porch again. Not a good sign. She asked me, "Did you apologize to Miss Gray?" And I said, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "And how did you apologize to Miss Gray?" Pointing her finger at me. And I told her. She said, "Now, do you think that that was respectful? And do you think that that's a good face for the family?" And I said, "No, ma'am." She said, "Well, you know what you have to do." Huh. So I had to return to Miss Gray and I had to apologize. So, because I wanted to see tomorrow and I didn't know how many people were going to be in the house when I returned, I said, "Miss Gray, I need to apologize to you because I did not mean any disrespect to you. And I need to apologize to you for not walking the right way home and saying good afternoon to you. And I hope that you will accept my apology." Well, that old lady had the nerve to look at me up and down and huff and walked inside. So you have to understand, uh, you were held accountable. You were held responsible. You had obligations back then that were set for you. And so that was a community. That was the '60s and '70s. Everything in that community, everything in that neighborhood was relevant and significant to you. See, you had your church, you had your grocery stores, you had your schools. The only time you left the neighborhood, you left your community, was when you went downtown to the department stores or when you were visiting other churches because of anniversaries. So people looked out for one another. Now, please do not mistake. I'm not saying that everything back then was perfect because it wasn't. Every generation has things it does well, and every generation has things it struggles with. But one thing I appreciate is that children understood there were people helping to shape them. And it wasn't just one parent, it was a community, it was a whole family. It was your grandparents. It was your great aunts and uncles and neighbors. And you have to understand where I lived in Capitol Heights. My great grandparents lived 2 houses from my grandparents' house. My grandmother's brothers and their wives lived the 2 houses is 2 blocks away or 2 blocks on the side, but everyone knew who I belonged to. They knew that when they saw me, they knew that I was Roy and Evelyn Carter's grandson, and or they knew that I was Papa Sid and Mama Carter's great grandson, or I knew that I was Barney nephew. Everyone knew me. Everybody raised me. I couldn't do shit back then because everybody in that community had a hand in helping the children become adults. And that's why I say, parents, you are the first teachers, not because you're the only teachers and not because you're the first, long before school and long before social media and long before friends became influential. Children were watching the people inside their home, they were watching the community. They were watching how the adults in the home solved the problems, how they spoke to one another, how they handled disappointment, how they show affection. My folks were huggers. We like to hug, and I still like to hug. I believe most earnestly, I believe in the power of hugs, and I believe in the power of love, and I believe in the power of prayer, hugs and prayers. I believe in the power. We also saw how they treat people with disagreement. See, children watch far more than they listen. And you can tell a child to respect people all day long. But if they never see respect, they're learning something different. You can teach children about forgiveness and you can tell children forgiveness matters. But if no one ever forgives, they're learning something different. You can tell children communication is important. But if everyone shuts down every time there's a conflict, they're learning something different. And here's another thing, parents can't teach what they were never taught. Now understand, I'm not criticizing anybody. That's just reality. If no one ever showed you healthy communication, you may struggle with communicating. If no one ever apologized to you, you may not realize how healing those words can be. If no one ever modeled healthy boundaries, you may not know what healthy boundaries even look like or you resemble. And that doesn't make somebody a bad parent. And please believe that. That does not make somebody a bad parent. That makes them human. Every parent brings their own childhood into the family. And sometimes they bring healthy traditions. Unfortunately, sometimes they bring painful habits. Sometimes they bring both. And sometimes they don't even realize they're repeating what they grew up with until one day when life starts slowing down enough, they see it. Now, see, that's why personal growth matters because the more we understand ourselves, the better we're able to love the people who matters the most. In parenting, whether we realize it or not, is one of the greatest opportunities we'll ever have to grow. Now, let's talk about something that almost every family has experienced at one time or another, and that is comparison. Before I say anything else, parents, please hear me. Most of the time, comparison doesn't come from a bad place. It really doesn't. And most parents aren't trying to hurt their children. They're trying to encourage them and they're trying to motivate them and they're trying to help them assist them to become the best version of themselves. But sometimes what parents intended isn't what the children experience. And I'm sure you've heard it before that, or maybe you even said it. Why can't you be more like your brother? Look at your sister. Your brother already finished his homework. Your sister never talks back. Now, From the parent's perspective or point of view, they could be thinking, I'm trying to encourage my child. I'm trying to show them what's possible. I'm trying to help them do better. But here's the question: what is the child hearing? Because from a child's standpoint, they may not be hearing encouragement. They could be hearing, so I'm not good enough. My brother is better than me. My sister makes mama happier than I do. No matter what I do, I'll never measure up. And see, those words can stay with a child a long time, sometimes a lifetime, even into adulthood. Now, I've learned that children don't always remember the exact words, and they remember how those words made them feel. And feelings have a way of hanging around long after the conversation is over and long after childhood is over. And unfortunately, sometimes even after the parents are gone. That's why our words matter. Now, allow me to say something. Oh, comparison doesn't just affect the child of who's being corrected, it will also affect the child who is being praised too. And think about it. If one child is always called the smart one or the responsible one or the easy one, that child starts carrying pressure. Now, they believe they always have to live up to that label. Can't make mistakes, they can't struggle, and can't have a bad day because everybody expects them to keep being who they've always been. And trust and believe that's a heavy burden for a child to carry. So, comparison creates two different problems. A child can start wondering, were they good enough? Or start wondering what happens if I stop being perfect. Now, neither child is free to simply become who they were created to be. Now, when I was in therapy, that made me think you have two children growing up in the same house, same parents, and you leave the house with two completely different stories. Now, I had to go to therapy when I went to the University of South Carolina, and I had to find out who I was. I had to find out why I was sabotaging myself. And, you know, I found out what it was all about. So one child can remember constant encouragement, and another one remembers the pressure, and one remembers being protected, and one remembers being overlooked. Same parents, same home, different experience. And that's why I keep saying perception matters. And not because perception is always accurate, but because perception becomes reality to the individual, to the person experiencing it. Now, as parents, sometimes we think they know I love them, and maybe they do. But love isn't only something we feel, love is something we experience. Children hear it. They need to hear it. They need to see it. They need to feel it. And not only on special occasions such as birthdays and Christmas, and not just after they accomplish something. Sometimes they need to hear, I'm proud of you just because you're you. Now, let me tell you something I had to learn myself. Appreciation should never be assumed. And sometimes we think people know how much we appreciate them, but we've never told them. I remember that was one of the things that my grandmother always told me, Louis, you never show appreciation. You just never show appreciation. And I wonder, and please forgive me. Please, please, please forgive me. I'm thinking, this woman's crazy as hell. I ain't kissing nobody's ass. I show appreciation all the time. But perception, for my grandmother's perception, I wasn't showing appreciation. And as I grew up and as I started paying more attention, I saw how my actions were showing something different. And so that's why I've made it a habit of telling people it's become a part of me. I appreciate you. I love you and I understand you. And so sometimes you have to tell them. You have to tell them that we're proud of them, but we never say the words. And we think they know we love them, but let's be realistic. We are living in a hectic environment. We stay busy all the time. We're working, we're paying bills, we're trying to keep life together, and that we forget to express it. Now, please, please, please do not assume people know. Tell them. You'll be surprised. Those few words may mean more than you ever realize. And see, children don't need perfect parents. They need parents who are intentional, parents who notice, who encourage, parents who are willing to say, I got that wrong, parents who are willing to keep learning because parenting it's just like life. It's a journey and it's not a designation. And every one of us, we're still learning along the way. Oh boy. Now let's talk about something families don't always like talking about. Favoritism. Oh baby. This conversation can get uncomfortable because every parent wants to believe they love their children the same. And you know what? Most parents probably do. And they actually believe that. But here's a question. Do all the children experience that love the same way? Now, see, and that's the different conversation because favoritism is real and sometimes it isn't. Sometimes it's simply, see, there's that word again, perception. But here's what I've learned perception has power. And if a child believes somebody else is a favorite, see, that belief can shape the relationship between siblings for years. And even if the parent never intended it. I remember something from my own family. See, I was blessed to have two grandmothers and a set of great grandparents. On my mom's side, initially called my grandmother Mama, but as I got up older, I changed it to Gam. So Mama's mother, my maternal grandmother, was Gam. On my dad's side, my paternal grandmother I called Nanny. So I had Gam, my mom's mother, and Nanny, my dad's mother. Now, when it came to the favorite of the grandparents, I just realized something. Woo-hoo! Oh wow, this is whack. Oh wow, on my mom's side, I was the first grandchild. On my daddy's side, I was the youngest. I was the youngest until 3 years later when my sister arrived. So, oh wow, I experienced being the oldest while at the same time experienced being the baby. Oh, I was a baby. Oh, so see, on my mom's side, whoever was in the presence of my grandmother, Gam, that was her favorite. Now you have to understand, on my mom's side, we were taught to know your place and to stay in your place. We were taught that we had obligations. Obligations. We had expectations. We had responsibilities. And see, back then, you had no choice but to do them because if you wish to live to see tomorrow, you did it because you didn't debate. It was law. Whatever was set from the old folks, from the elders, you did it. So I didn't need the attention. I didn't need all that stuff. You understand? Because I just didn't need it. Because, oh, wow. Because, see, I lived most of my time with my mom's parents, which really, oh, wow. I had 3 experiences. I was the oldest grandchild on my mom's side. I was the baby or the youngest on my dad's side. And then to add to the equation, I was the only child because when I lived with my mama's parents, I was the only one in the household. Oh, snap. Oh, get out of here. So I was the oldest. I experienced being the oldest. I experienced being the baby. And I've experienced being the only child. Oh, get out of here. So, okay, I digress. So now, if you ask different people in the family who was a favorite, you'll probably get several different answers. And just after what I've experienced, oh, wow. Everyone has their own opinion, and they have their own story, and everybody had a reason they believed what they believed. And you know what? Wow. Maybe every one of us saw something a little differently because, that's how families work. Now, after my mom's mom, my GAM, passed away, that was a totally different experience than when my dad's mom passed away, my nanny. Because, see, while I was at the University of Alabama being certified to teach AP classes, I was called and was said that I needed to rush to Montgomery because my grandmother was in the hospital. So I rushed home and I rushed to the hospital and found out that the doctor had come in and had my grandmother seen everybody? And everyone, from what I gathered, stated that she hadn't seen Lewis, and he asked who I was, and they told her, "Well, that's her grandson. That's the oldest grandchild." And so went into the room, and whew, everyone was in the room. And next thing I knew, I looked around, and everybody was gone. So it was just my grandmother and myself. And so hmm, mm, I went over to her bed and held her hand and patted it, and I told her that, "Oh boy, I'm gonna be okay. I am where I am. I am the person that I am because of you. So I'm gonna be okay." You know, to be honest, I don't want you to go, but I know that you're tired, and I know that you need to go to sleep. So know that I'm good. I'm gonna be good. You taught me well, and everything that you taught me, I remember. I love you. And I squeezed her hand. She squeezed me back, and then she went to sleep. And, and the next thing I know, everybody was back in the room. And I remember my uncle was saying that, well, I knew she was waiting on Lewis. So, see, I had a different relationship with my grandmother. I had a different memories with my grandmother. So, we don't experience that relationship the same way. And that doesn't necessarily mean everybody was wrong. It just means when it comes to relationships, they're personal. Now, when it on my dad's side, when Nanny passed away, there was a certain there was a certain dynamic going on between my dad and his sister, Aunt Billy. And I know that they were working through their own way of losing their mother. And I think they actually loved each other, but that wasn't any question about that. But see, they remember certain things differently. They carry the different emotions and responsibility and experiences. And, you know, I realized something. You can grow up in the same family and love the same individual, same people, and yet still walk away with completely different memories. And that's one of the reasons I don't argue with individuals when it comes to their childhood anymore. And see, I'm not interested in hearing how they experienced it because whether I remembered that or not, n- their experience is real to them. Now, see, that's where the healing begins. It's not by proving that someone is wrong, it's by listening long enough to understand why they remember it the way they do. You know, sometimes families spend years arguing over facts, and you can hear somebody say, "Well, I never saw that," or "That didn't happen," and you're remembering it wrong. And maybe, maybe not. But see, here's a question: how did that experience affect you? Because if something is left unopened, a wound, ignoring it does not make it disappear. It just simply gets quieter until something later in life wakes it back up. And see, that's what happens in a lot of families. You have siblings that are getting promoted or becoming successful, and you have some getting married, and unfortunately, you have your parents getting sick and the passing away. And then, because of not dealing with those issues, then all those old feelings start coming back and they come back like waves. And not just because they just happened, it's because they never completely left. See, that's why I believe with all my heart, I believe that families need more conversations and less arguments. They need conversations, more listening, more understanding. Because being willing to hear something different than your own experience, that's the greatest gift you can give another person. Is simply allowing them to tell the story without any interruptions and without immediately trying to correct it. And maybe, t- just maybe, that's where the healing starts. Not with winning the argument, but just understanding the person. Let's talk about something that doesn't always get much attention, and that's labels. Families hand out labels all the time. Sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're harmless, and sometimes they stay with people a whole lot longer than anyone ever intended. And you know the labels. You have the smart one, the quiet one, the athletic, the responsible one, the baby, or the sensitive one, the hard headed one, the troublemaker. And most families have them. And sometimes we even laugh about them. But have you ever stopped to think about what happens when a child starts believing that label? A child who is always called the smart one may grow up feeling like they're never allowed to fail. And then you have the child who is always called the quote unquote troublemaker. They eventually stop trying to prove people wrong. And they may think, well, shit, if everybody already expects me to mess up, why keep fighting it? And see, that's the danger of labels. After a while, people stop hearing what they're called and start believing that's who they are. Now, see, I grew up hearing something different. I heard, and you remember I told you earlier, I heard know your place, stay in your place. I was taught that you have obligations, you have expectations, you have responsibilities. And see, before somebody misunderstands, let me explain what I mean. See, back then, when you knowing my place wasn't believing I was less than somebody else. It was about understanding responsibilities. And children have responsibilities, adults have responsibilities. Everyone has a role inside their family. You see, back in my day, you respected the elders. You had chores around the house. You learned that being part of a family meant contributing, giving to the family. And see, that was an expectation. Now, can expectations become unhealthy? Oh, absolutely. Ugh, if expectations turn into pressure, and if they become impossible to meet, and if children begin believing they only loved when they perform, then you have a problem. But healthy expectation teaches responsibilities, teaches accountabilities, teaches respect. And see, there's a difference between expecting something from a child and defining who that child is. See, an expectation states, I expect you to tell the truth. A label states, you're a liar. And see, those are two different messages. One addresses behavior, the other attacks identity. And trust, children need to know the difference. Parents, grandparents, teachers, all of us need to be careful about the words we repeat because children are listening. And they're listening when you don't even think they're listening. They're listening while they're asleep. They hear what we call them. They hear how we describe them to other people. They hear what we laugh about or what frustrates us. And little by little, those words begin shaping how they see themselves. Now, see, I've met adults, grown men and women, still trying to outrun a label somebody gave them 40, 50 years ago. Still trying to prove they weren't the difficult child or proving they weren't smart enough or proving they mattered. Imagine, imagine something like that your whole life because of words spoken during childhood. See, that's why I believe encouragement is powerful. Children need correction. Absolutely. Every child needs it. They need the encouragement. They need somebody to notice what's good, somebody to notice the effort, somebody to remind them, I'm proud of you. Not because you won, not because you made perfect grades, not because you were better than your siblings, just because you're growing, because you're trying, because you're becoming the person God created you to be. And see, maybe that's something all of us need to hear. And no matter how old we are, because some of us are still carrying labels that no longer belong to us. And oof, maybe it's time to put them down. Now, let's talk about something children notice almost immediately: fairness. And if you've ever raised more than one child, you already know children have a built in fairness detector. They notice everything. We got the bigger piece of cake, who stayed up later, who got the new shoes, who got away with something, s- uh, who got fussed at, who didn't. And sometimes they notice things that adults don't even think about. Now, this is what I've learned. Children don't always expect everything to be equal. Most of them understand that a 5-year-old doesn't have the same responsibilities as a 15-year-old, and they understand that different ages mm, come with different rules. I mean, what they're really asking is, am I being treated fairly? You see, they're the difference. Fair doesn't always mean identical. And you have to keep in mind that every child is different. You got one child that requires more guidance and one who needs more independence and more a child that responds to a calm conversation and one who's firmer direction. And good parents learn their children. They learn what each child needs. And that's just part of parenting. But here's where communication becomes important. When children do not understand why something is different, they often create their own explanation, and children don't always come up with the healthy explanations. They may decide that one parent loves someone more, or one sibling or parent believes in one sibling more than they, and they think that, well, I guess I'm the problem. See, those thoughts can take root if no one helps them understand what's really going on. Now, let me say this: discipline should never become humiliation. And there's a difference. When you correct a child, correcting a child is part of parenting. Embarrassing a child is totally something different. And if a child should be corrected without being made to feel worthless, because the goal isn't to tear the child down, the goal is to help them grow. One thing I've tried to become more intentional about over the years is appreciation. And I don't think we tell people we appreciate them enough. Sometimes we assume they already know. We think they know I love them. They know I'm proud of them. They know I appreciate everything they do. And maybe they do, but why make people guess? Why not tell them? I remember reaching a point in my life where I started making a conscientious effort to let people know they mattered to me. And not because I had done something extraordinary, not because I've earned it that day, just because I appreciated who they were. And sometimes just a simple, I appreciate you can change somebody's whole day. Sometimes it can change even a relationship. And sometimes it can begin healing something that has been hurting for years. And parents, don't underestimate that. Children need correction. Oh, most definitely. Absolutely. But they also need encouragement. They need to hear that I'm proud of you. I believe in you. I love you. And not only when they win, and not only when they make good grades, and not only when they make you look good, they need to hear those words simply because they're your child. And that's what helps children develop security. It's not perfection, it's security. Because children who feel secure, they don't spend as much time competing for the love. They already know they have it. And when children know they're loved, it becomes easier for them to celebrate one another. And instead of constantly competing with one another, parenting isn't about getting every decision correct and right. None of us will do that. It's about creating a home where every child knows that they matter, they belong, and that they're loved. And when children grow up believing those things, they carry that confidence into the rest of their lives. Now, we talked about comparison and favoritism, and labels, and discipline. But there's one more thing I think deserves just as much attention: emotional availability. Now, emotional availability, that's one of those phrases that people throw around these days. So let me try to tell you what I mean. I'm not talking about buying more stuff or taking expensive vacations or talking about whether your children had the newest shoes or the latest phones. I'm talking about being present, being available, accessible, actually seeing your children. See, children remember moments when they remember who listened or who asked how their day went, or who noticed when something wasn't right, who celebrated them when nobody else did, or who sat down and talked instead of always correcting. See, those moments stay with individuals. And sometimes for the rest of their lives, oh, Now, understand something, life gets busy, and we know that parents are working. They have all these responsibilities. They're trying to keep food on the table, they're trying to pay bills, and then on top of that, they're trying to keep the household together. And parents, I know you tired as hell. I know you're exhausted before you even walk through the front door. I totally understand. I totally. But see, this isn't about expecting parents to be superheroes. It's about reminding us that sometimes, just sometimes, just 5 minutes of undivided attention oh, can mean more than $500 spent trying to make up for not being there. See, one thing that I've learned over the years is the importance of appreciation, being able to show people how much you appreciate them. So I remember for me to show, oh boy, I sent my sister an email the day before yesterday. And I apologize for any miscommunications or misunderstandings and for harsh words. And because, see, I wanted her to know that her experience, what she experienced, is totally different than what I experienced. And I wanted to let her know that in a way that I appreciated her. Now, I still do not want a relationship with her. Trust and believe that shit. I do not wish to have a relationship with her. I needed to let her know that I apologize for any miscommunications, misunderstandings, and any harsh words that came about. Because, see, I wanted her to know that I appreciated her in her own right. And it wasn't because of anything special or anything. It's simply I wanted her to know that I'm sorry. I appreciate her. Now, see, whew, sometimes we wait until a funeral to tell people how much they meant to us. And sometimes we wait until a relationship falls apart before we finally say, I really did appreciate you. And well, why do we wait? Why can't we tell people while they're still here? See, I do not believe in funerals. I believe that funerals are for the living. I believe that it's a way of individuals showcasing or easing their conscience. So, see, my funeral is already prearranged. I'm not having what is it, graveyard service. I'm not having a service or visitation because, see, if you cannot tell me how much you appreciate me, or if you cannot tell me how you feel about me while I'm living, I sure as hell ain't going to give you no time of day. I'm not giving you no stage. I'm not giving you an opportunity to lie and to ease your conscience when I can't hear you. I'm not going to do it. Tell me now. Give me give me my yellow roses now. Show me how much you appreciate me. Show me how much you love me. See, why can't we tell people while they're still here? Tell your children, tell your parents, tell your siblings, your spouse, your friends. Never assume they already know. Say the words. You know, when I went to therapy, I've mentioned therapy before, it helped me to understand myself. It helped me to understand why I respond to certain things the way that I did. It helped me understand that healing isn't about pretending the past didn't happen because the past did happen. It's accepting the past. It's being able to look at it fully, raw, because that's what you want to do. So it's about deciding what you're going to do with it now. And see, that's a huge difference. That's a big difference. We spend years waiting for somebody else to apologize, or waiting for somebody else to admit they were wrong, or waiting for somebody else to finally understand how they hurt us. And you see, sometimes that day never comes. And then what? Do we spend the rest of our lives carrying that weight, or do we begin doing the work of healing anyway? Hear me. Healing doesn't mean pretending everything was okay. Healing doesn't mean saying something didn't hurt when it did. And healing doesn't mean removing healthy boundaries. Because, see, sometimes boundaries are exactly what makes healing possible. I like the word boundaries because boundaries aren't punishment, they're clarity. They help people understand what's healthy, what's acceptable, what's respectful. You can love somebody and still have boundaries. See, those two things, they don't fight each other. Matter of fact, healthy love usually has healthy boundaries. Parents, one of the greatest gifts you can give your children isn't pretending you never make mistakes. It's showing them what repair looks like, what it resembles. Imagine the power of a parent saying, "You know what? I got that wrong. And I'm sorry. I didn't realize that affected you the way that it did. Please help me understand." Do you know what that teaches a child? It teaches a child that relationships can recover, that love isn't destroyed by mistakes, that humility is strength. It's not weakness. And see, maybe that's something all of us can carry with us, whether we're parents or children, grandparents, or somewhere in between. See, families don't become stronger by pretending they're perfect. Families become stronger because people are willing to grow. They're willing to listen, to understand. They're willing to love one another even while they're still learning. See, what creates an emotional climate is where relationships can heal, not perfection, but presence, and not always having the right answers, but being willing to have that conversation. Now, as I begin to wrap up this conversation, I'd like to leave you with a few questions, and not questions for your brother or your sister or your parents, questions for you. Were you ever labeled in your family? And were you the smart one or the quiet one? Were you the responsible one? Were you the different one, the difficult one, the baby, the athlete? Or maybe you were the one everybody expected to fix everything. Or maybe you were the one who quietly slipped through the cracks. And ask yourself this: do you still believe that label? Or have you spent your life trying to prove it wrong? Because, see, sometimes we become so comfortable wearing a label, we forget it was never supposed to become an identity. It was somebody else's description of us at one time, at one moment. And it was never meant to define us for the rest of our lives. So, see, maybe today is a good day to let go of that label you've been carrying for years. Maybe today is a good day to stop comparing yourself to your siblings. Maybe today is a good day to stop measuring your worth by what somebody else thinks. Because, see, your value doesn't come from a label, and it doesn't come from comparison, and it doesn't come from being better than somebody else. Your value, your worth comes from who you are. And if you're a parent listening today, oh, please, let me encourage you. Please don't walk away from these episodes feeling guilty. See, that isn't my hope. That's not my prayer. That was not my intention. See, every parent has moments they wish they could do over. And every parent has things they would, you best believe, probably handle differently today because, see, we're human. So please, parents, give yourself some grace. Give yourself permission to grow, to listen, ask questions, have conversations. Tell your children you love them. Tell them you're proud of them. Tell them you appreciate them. And if you need to apologize, apologize. See, you may be surprised how much healing can actually begin with a few honest words. See, parents do not have to be perfect because, see, none of us are. But see, we can be intentional. We can choose to create homes where children feel safe, where they are heard, where they feel they have valued and worth, and where they know without a doubt they are loved. Because sometimes the smallest moments actually become the biggest memories. And see, whew, sometimes one intentional conversation, you best believe, can change a family for generations. Now, before I let you go, you know, I appreciate and I thank you for spending this time with me. And I understand these conversations aren't always easy. And what I hope is that they will make you think and remind us of things we rather forget. And sometimes they remind us of things we still have time to make better. And see, that's my hope. That's my prayers. That's my goal. Is not profession, progress. Now, if today's conversation made you stop and think, oh, baby, I would love to hear from you, visit the website and head over to Ask Oz. You might have a question about the family, about parenting, about sibling relationships, or maybe you got a story you want to share. You never know. Your question might even become a future episode and help somebody else who's been carrying the same thing. I also want to remind you about our featured artist spotlight. And one of the things I enjoy the most is helping introduce people to talented artists who deserve to be seen and heard. And if you're a musician or a spoken word artist, a comedian, a poet, a DJ, or anything creative, please visit the website and tell me about your work. I would love to hear more about what you're doing. And if your business or your organization believes in creating stronger families and healthier communities, oh, I definitely would love to talk with you about becoming a podcast sponsor because your support helps us continue to have these honest conversations and reaching more people each week. And as always, I would like to recommend two books we're using throughout this season. The first is Boundaries by Dr. Henry Cloud and Dr. John Townsend. It's a wonderful resource for understanding healthy relationships, communication, and personal responsibility. The second is Adult Sibling Relationships by Jeffrey L. Gruff and Michael E. Worley. Now, it offers thoughtful insights into how sibling relationships continue to grow and change throughout adulthood. You'll find the Amazon affiliate links in the companion blog post on the website. And if you purchase through those links, the podcast may earn a small commission at no additional cost to you. And that support helps me continue producing conversations like this. And one quick reminder before we close everything we discuss on the Oz podcast is intended for conversation and for reflection and for education and encouragement. And please keep in mind, the footnote disclaimer I am, I am not a licensed therapist, I am not a psychologist, and I'm definitely not here to replace professional counseling or medical advice. I'm just simply your Dutch uncle, sharing what I've learned and what I've lived and what I hope encourages you to think a little differently about life as well as relationships. Take what helps you, reflects on what challenges you, And when you need professional guidance, please, please do not hesitate to seek it. Next Tuesday, we'll continue season 1 with episode 4, Through the Eyes of the Child. And see, we're going to step into the child's world. You're going to talk about what it feels like to grow up believing you're unseen, unheard, compared, misunderstood. Because sometimes adults remember raising children while children remember growing up. Now, see, those two experiences are not the same. I think it's going to be one of the most meaningful conversations of this season. And I hope you join me. Until next time, know that you have value. Know that you have worth. Know that you're loved. And most importantly, know that I love you more than I love my luggage. Y'all take care. I'll see you next Tuesday. Love you.